understand this better, okay? Understand this better. Because President Reagan invited Margaret Thatcher to the White House, plus he also invited President Gorbachev to the White House, and they blessed. So I am playing Titanic, okay? better. Okay, I played this for President Reagan. Okay, I may play for President Trump, President Putin also, but let us see how they do well, how they meet. That is still the future event. That is still the future event. And somebody said, Russian drama to President Reagan. I didn't like that. President Reagan is not the Russian drama. I didn't like that idea at all. I see him as a 21st century man, 21st century president, 21st century president. Okay, understand this better. Okay, President has done a lot of things. President Reagan has done a lot of things. You see, you may have said Russian drama because of the reason he brought the President Gorbachev to White House. That may be your reason, but he is not the Russian drama. He is the President Reagan. He did many things good to America, and he introduced America to the world. He introduced America to the world, to Russia, to Asia, to Europe. He made most powerful nation in the world. Most powerful nation in the world. Without him, I don't think it was possible. Without him, I think it was not possible. You can guess in other line. You can guess in other line. Without him, he stood firm. He stood firm. He stick to his words, and he stood firm. And understand understand the story of Reagan-Bush time. Understand the story of Reagan-Bush time. Extend it to entire 21st century. President Reagan is a history of 21st century. Whole, not only 20th century, not only 20th century, 21st century, 22nd century. Understand this better, okay? Understand this better. Not only he was 88 president. He was not only that president. I think he is still in power, and all the way from 2000 to 3000. All the way from 2000 to 3000. So can President Putin be that man? Can President Trump and Putin be that man? We have still to see. We can still see, we can still guess. President is a Manhattan man. President Trump is Manhattan man. He is bold, and he can do a lot. And but he is doing in a military style. But at least he has seen how the future tax will come, where the future tax revenue will come, from where future tax income will come. So that is why he is building one big, I think, what you can say, arena, one big arena. We appreciate him. We appreciate him for that, because at least we can dance, we can play music and collect income from that if tax doesn't make inroad. If tax doesn't make inroad. Otherwise, future, you see, if we go to Capitol Hill, they all the time complain about 1%, 10%, and bottom 90%. What is that? Will not be better off if there are if 10% doesn't do well, will not be better off. Understand this better. Understand this better. If 10% doesn't, top 10% doesn't do well, bottom 90% will not do better. Will not do better. So understand that better. Okay? And we are lucky that we have the Walmart. We are lucky that we have the Walmart. And you see, extend it to entire 21st century. President Trump put in time. Beyond President Trump put in time. Understand this. How President Putin deals with President Trump. How President Putin deals with President Trump. Understand this better. He is bilingual, but he speaks in Russian. President Putin is speaking in Russian. He is not speaking in English. He can call directly to the President Trump in English, not in Russian. Not in Russian. President Reagan opened that door long ago. President Reagan opened that door long ago. Okay? So, they should not be shy about. What we see, this Russia-Ukraine war, what we see, we don't want to see Russia-Ukraine war, Israel-Hamas war, this type of things. We don't want to see that. American people don't want to see that. But these are happening. Understand this better. You see, will not be better off if top 10% doesn't do well, okay? And if white men don't kill two white men. If you are a white man, don't kill two white men. Don't fight. Don't go on fighting. Don't go. Defense Department, they are wise, but what to do? They are wise. They go to Congress and they take approval from Congress, and after that only President, it becomes the law and President signs into the law. But be wise in the Defense Department. With this much of infrastructure we have in America, we cannot go offensive. Understand this better, okay? Britain has a new king. But Brexit happened and President Trump became Democratic president. Is that the legacy of this new king? That should be the legacy of new king. Does Britain does well with undermining America? That is not the case. We walk along the line, we walk straight, we walk smoothly, we help each other. What is that new palace? Why President Trump became guest there? Why President Trump even accepted the guest of this new palace? Understand this better, okay? Thank you, BBC Proms 2025 violin. Thank you, BBC Proms 2025 violin. But CNN goes to City of London. In presence of BBC. So understand that. Okay, and so don't become angry with me. Okay, I waited for a very long time. Because I wrote this big a book to try Federal Reserve Chairman. Federal Reserve Chairman, and this president doesn't understand that. What is this? This Washington doesn't understand that. This front page itself is very clear. Ask me when the Federal Reserve and Washington do not have clue about economy. Lean Forward is the title. And I have written in the front page. And author is Uttam Paul. This is author of Lean Forward. Okay, this is author of Lean Forward. I will complain to President Reagan. If you don't appoint me as a Federal Reserve Chairman, I will complain to President Reagan. Okay, President Reagan and President Bush too. Bush 1. I will complain to them. Okay, understand this better. I am still waiting Federal Reserve Chairman, and I may accept UN Secretary General, or I may accept UN Secretary General or Federal Reserve Chairman, whichever comes first. I may accept that appointment. I may accept that appointment. Understand, President Reagan, don't say Russian drummer to President Reagan. He is a 21st century president. 21st century president. Don't say that to me. I don't want to listen that. I don't want to listen that at all. Okay? President Reagan, Bush did many things. President Reagan and Bush did many things. What they did, yeah, they welcomed Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, Democratic Prime Minister of Britain, very conservative country. They welcomed the democracy of Britain. Okay? And Berlin Wall. Mr. Gorbachev tear down this wall. Mr. Gorbachev tear down this wall. Who said that? It is President Reagan. Who said that? It is President Reagan. And the implication of that is East Germany and West Germany now are united. East Germany and West Germany are now united, and President Gorbachev accepted that. Okay, understand that. And President Gorbachev came to White House. President Gorbachev came to White House. President Gorbachev came to White House, but they didn't meet in a Larry King life. They didn't meet in a Larry King life. Okay, so understand this better. Okay, understand this better. And you see, President Reagan has very long legacy. He built the nation. He built America. He built America. He made America powerful. He made America powerful in America, in Europe, in Asia. In America, in Europe, in Asia. So, President Reagan made America powerful itself in America, in Europe, in Asia. So, he is very wise man, wise president. He is very wise president in our long history of almost 250 years now. In our long history of 250 years now. And 100 years coming. Count 100 years coming. This century will pass on in President Reagan's legacy. I see that. President Reagan, this century will pass on President Reagan's legacy. I see that. So understand this better, okay? And you see, we appreciate Reagan-Bush ticket very much. We appreciate Reagan-Bush ticket very much, okay? Bush 1 was little liberal than President Reagan. Bush 1 was little liberal than President Reagan, but he was not liberal like Democrats. He was not liberal like Democrats. Bush 1 was liberal than President Reagan, but he was not liberal like Democrats. Chuck Schumer or say other Democrats, okay? Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, he was not like that, okay? That is why he blessed President Clinton. That is why he blessed President Clinton 2 terms, almost 2 terms. Okay, understand this better. President Bush, so far I understand him, would not transfer power to black. If it was Bush 1, he would not transfer power to black. If it was Bush 1, he would not transfer power to black. Okay, understand this. If it was Reagan, he would not transfer power to black. Okay. And Bush 1 visited China when it was still Peking. Bush 1 visited China when it was still Peking. Still Peking. The President Bush thought he is leaving behind inflation. He is leaving behind inflation, the press, American press, free speech, and Watergate was still in the noise. Watergate was still in the noise, okay? And warnings of isolation, oh no. Somebody may have given that voice. Isolation. America, he thought up, is America in isolation? He thought up in that line and he wanted to help. He wanted to help America as much as he can. Halfway around the world, he met new generation of leaders. Halfway around the world, he went to China to meet leaders there, and there are no old faces. There are no old faces. They are all new faces. We don't understand Chinese. Chinese do not understand English. We don't understand Chinese. Chinese do not understand English. And President had hard time, somehow hard time, but he managed it. And you see, President Reagan was a decent president. President Reagan was a decent president, and in his second term election in 1984. In his second term election in 1984, he gently criticized CNN. Gently criticized CNN. And where is the beef? And he said, where is the beef? You see, we find beef in grocery store, in Walmart. We find beef in grocery store, Walmart. And where is the beef has other meaning too. Where is the beef has other meaning too. What is that? Where are the new ideas? Where is the beef means, where are the new ideas? Where is the beef means, where are the new ideas? Okay, and this was his style of criticizing CNN. This was his style of criticizing CNN. Okay, he didn't see CNN in his campaign of 2084. He didn't see CNN in his campaign of 2084. And so he thought, is CNN still with President Carter? Is CNN still with President Carter? CNN follows not President. CNN follows not President. CNN follows the check. Who writes the check? That was the time President Carter wrote the check to CNN. That was the time President Carter wrote the check to CNN. Okay? And media bias, media is neutral. At that time, what you say? When CNN didn't go to President Reagan's second term election, is that media bias or media neutrality? Understand that better, okay? With that much of evidence, Ted Turner looked liberal. So, Ted Turner looked liberal. Why? Because he followed the check, not the president. He followed the check, he didn't follow the president. Okay, in President Reagan's second term. So, and one time I remember President Bush once said, President Reagan sticks to his word. President Reagan sticks to his word. He appreciated that much to President Reagan. And in his election, what he said, read my lips, no new taxes. Read my lips, no new taxes. He was trying to convince the media, he was trying to convince the American people. Okay, understand this better. Don't say Russian drama to President Reagan. He is a century, whole 21st century president of America. Okay, President Reagan said, if there is New York Times in Europe, Europe does not need other media. If New York Times is in Europe, New York Times doesn't need other media. That is the understanding gap. That is the understanding gap. Okay. He chose to say deficit will be thing of the past. President Reagan chose to say deficit will be thing of the past. He was supporting veterans. He was supporting Defense Department. He was supporting Pentagon. Okay, and in a second campaign of 1984, he implied Democrats have not progressed much. He implied Democrats have not progressed much in his second term campaign of 1984. In second term campaign of 1984, he implied Democrats have not progressed much, so why should I worry? Democrats have not progressed much, so why should I worry? He thought of in that line. But he campaigned in California. So he was a wise president. He was a very wise president. Okay, and you see, can we say 21st century of President Reagan and Bush? Or should we say 21st century is of President Reagan and President Gorbachev? Or should we say President Reagan and President Putin? If President Putin makes European Russia and Asian Russia and sells Siberia to Japan. That may be the case. That is still we are watching. That may be the case in future. Okay, understand this better. Okay, and they didn't appear in CNN with Larry King Live. We all miss. I was a viewer then. I was the CNN viewer, media viewer then. Yeah, but I didn't see that movie, TV broadcast. So I don't. And I read the Larry King book. And Larry King has said, he has answered, he didn't do it. Okay, so understand that better, because Larry King office was in Atlanta, and he couldn't bring back, that old man cannot bring back that to White House. That was the practical difficulty of CNN. Okay, and you see, President Reagan blessed the library. To the state of California. He flew very long. Okay, he didn't try to New York City. He didn't try to Eastern States. He flew to California because he was a statesman. He was the president of America. That is why he flew long way. Okay, and it took 7 months to negotiate with Russia, and he worried and President Reagan worried. It took 7 months to negotiate with Russia. It took 7 months to negotiate with Russia. Now, if Putin calls, President Putin calls President Trump in English, it may be in, it will be in very short time. If President calls President Putin, it will be in very short time. It will not take 7 months. It will not take 7 months. Understand this better. So, President Trump is a Manhattan man. President Trump is a Manhattan man. And President Putin has a very big map. Very big map. He can make European Russia and Asian Russia if he wants to build his legacy. If he wants to build his legacy. So understand that better, okay? President Putin wants to see world come up in Russian pace or American pace. President Putin knows that, but he wants to make Russia big. I think we need to go to a practical situation. His legacy is making Asian Russia and European Russia. European Russia versus Asian Russia. And sell Siberia to Japan. Sell Siberia to Japan. Or China. Or Korea. Or East Pacific. Or Pacific. I think that will be a great legacy. Or if they don't want to let them come in, sell it to Western Europe. Sell it to Western Europe. That is all right. That is all right. But Russia is a big map. Russia is a big map. So, will it be President Reagan, President Putin? No, I think it was the ticket of President Putin, President Reagan, and President Bush won. Okay? President Trump and Putin, okay, we have yet to see. We have yet to see how far they progress. Okay, how far they progress. President Trump is a Manhattan man. President Trump is a Manhattan man. And President Putin knows President Trump well. So understand this better, how far they can progress. Okay? At this time, I want to play Little Titanic, but before that, understand this better, okay? You see, legacy of President Reagan in the foreign countries. Legacy of President Reagan in the foreign countries. In Asia, say in Asia, say in Europe, say in America. Of course, he built legacy in America, he built legacy in Europe, he built legacy in Asia. Because Asia respects a lot to President Reagan, Reagan Bush. Asia respects a lot to American presidents. Asia respects a lot to American presidents. Asia also respects to Buckingham Palace, but I think they respect more to American president. Okay, okay, and Asia respect to Brussels. Asia respect to Brussels. Asia respect to President Putin. President Putin, Russia. So don't fight, okay? President Putin, please don't budget to attack Ukraine. President Putin, please don't budget to attack Ukraine, okay? Please don't budget to attack Ukraine, okay? And President Trump, I think he cannot release the budget to Ukraine, okay? You see, Ukraine is small. You should not fight with Russia. I think Russia has good intention in Ukraine. Don't fight with Russia. Okay? And you see, I somehow learned that there is a kingdom in between China and India border. There was a kingdom in between China and India border. there was a kingdom in China and India border that helped historically for more than 100 years, it helped India and China not fight. It helped India and China not fight. And it will help still coming centuries. It will help still coming centuries. So, it is the natural border. Himalayan kingdom is a natural border between China and India. And I knew the Nepal king. He became very happy while seeing the White House meeting with President Gorbachev. The Nepal king became very happy when he saw President Reagan met with President Gorbachev. And Nepal king walked in Buckingham Palace. But he took photo with President Reagan. So understand that he was a king, but he appreciated presidency more. That legacy goes to Asia. So you see, Asia respects America a lot, American presidency a lot. So understand this better, okay? You see, President Reagan built legacy in America, President Reagan built legacy in Europe, President Reagan built legacy in Asia, and President Reagan said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. And President Reagan said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. That is how this East Germany and West Germany came close. They closed the gap, and now they are fine. They are doing fine, absolutely fine. And Brussels is in the helm of affairs. President Trump welcomed the President of France. President Trump also welcomed the Prime Minister of Australia. So I think, is it President Reagan's or President Trump's century? If it is President Trump's century, we have yet to see President Trump and President Putin. He is building big arena. He is contributing a lot in that front, his knowledge. So we should appreciate President Trump. But President Reagan was a statesman. He became strong. He made it strong to America. He made it strong not only in America itself, he made it strong to America. He made it strong to America in Europe. He made it strong to America in Asia. So understand this better, okay? I'll play Titanic for you, okay? At this time, I think you are too much, so you may feel too much. So I'll try to play Titanic for you, okay?